Hey everybody, welcome back. Mike from Spectre Comics. Haven't made a video in a while, but I'm back here filming on Christmas Day. I hope you're having a wonderful holiday season. Now today I wanted to talk about and go through an example of character design. Now the main protagonists in my Spectre storyline that I'm currently working on are the Ori. And the Ori are a race of aliens that go around pillaging other worlds for their resources. Now I introduced them in issue 6 of Spectre Comics, which I finished earlier this year. Now as bad as the Ori are, a small band of them has gone rogue and started kidnapping space travelers from around the galaxy to work the mines on an asteroid in a remote sector of space. Now although I revealed the Ori back in issue 6, I have not yet unveiled their leader, who will be a big part of issue 7. Now, as I'm moving the Spectre towards a final confrontation with this character, I needed to actually sit down and do a final design on this villain. So behind me on the screen, I'll actually talk through the process of the design while we're drawing the character. Now, currently I'm drawing on a Wacom Cintiq 13 HD tablet, and I'm using Photoshop Elements 2022 as my drawing program. And as I'm trying to build towards 1,000 subscribers on this channel, feel free to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any future art videos. So let me give you a little backstory on the creation of this character. When I was writing the script for issue 7, way back in 2016, I needed a leader who would oversee the mining operation on this rogue asteroid, which is the final destination of Spectre Comics issues 7 and 8, which will kind of end this storyline. Now, all of the Ori wear similar uniforms. They're kind of like stormtroopers from Star Wars, but I wanted the leader to be slightly different. I wanted him to be based on the similar design because he is the same species, but I wanted him to have a different look and be a little more unique. I called the leader Captain Gorgo, and he was to be larger and fiercer and more menacing than the regular foot soldiers. I created the Ori soldiers much earlier than when I created the captains. So here are some early sketches of what the Ori were looking like as I was going through the design process with them. And then once I introduced them in issue 6, here's the final design of what they ended up looking like. And this will be the premise of what the final design of the captain will look like as he's the leader. For the captain, he had to be similar to the Ori, but look a little more dangerous. So if you look at some early sketches that I did of the character right when I was coming up with the idea, when I was writing it in the script, the sketches really only were just really quick studies, and I never really got past the sketch phase because I couldn't settle on a design, and at the time I wasn't ready to jump full into designing that character. And that's what we're doing here today, kind of finalizing some of these initial ideas and finalizing it in the design so that I can have a final character that I can use as a reference through the rest of the story. So this drawing here will get me a lot closer to the final concept of the character and allow me to make some design decisions as we kind of go towards the final, absolute final design. So looking at the design of the Ori Foot Soldiers, you'll notice they wear segmented armor and they wear helmets that cover their faces. Now, as I said, I wanted the captain to have similar type armor, but I didn't want him to wear a helmet because I wanted to be able to see the expressions on his face. He gets angry a lot. He's got a lot of motion. He's more menacing, and you can't really express that when you just see the blank helmet that the other Ori wear. So the armor I wanted to be similar, but a lot more advanced. So it'll still have some of the similar features so you can recognize it as Ori armor. But I absolutely, as I said before, did not want him to wear a helmet, but I did want him to have some sort of technology on his face. So I opted for a partial face covering with like an optic eye lens over one eye. I like the idea of adding technology and giving his face a little more character. Now, like all Ori, I wanted his arms to be long and thin. He doesn't have large biceps, but I wanted his forearms and hands to be oversized, and that's typical of all Ori as well as all Optilings, which is what Arco is. So he does have a similar body type to all the Ori, but his size and stature are what contribute to his brute strength. Now, when the Spectre and Arco finally meet up with him in the final confrontation of this story, I want it to look like the only way they're going to defeat him if it's 5 against 1, because he's going to be so large and so menacing and powerful. Now, from some of the early design sketches that you're looking at now, you'll notice that there's a lot of extra decoration when I was just kind of conceiving of the character, a lot of capes, sashes, spikes. But the more I added all that stuff, the more he started to look like Shredder from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and I didn't want that. Another thing to consider is that the more design and detail that you put into a character, the longer it actually takes to draw them. So I was trying to make the character look interesting, but not make it so overly complicated that every time I drew the character, it took like an hour and a half to finish it, every scene that he was in. And because of this, a lot of the extra detail started to go away. And you'll notice that from the early sketches that you saw to the finalized character, or close to final character that we're drawing behind me, I've taken away a lot of that detail and just simplified where I could. Now, I want to talk about where the design ideas come from when you're designing a character, because a lot of times you will just sit and stare at a blank sheet of paper and you don't even know where to start. Now, I'm not one that's very good at just starting to scribble on a sketchbook and try to come up with ideas for characters. Now, a lot of the characters that I've designed in the past for my stories come from, just scribbles, and it's just me just playing with something. And a lot of times I'll take scribbles that I've done, quick concept sketches, and I'll just put them in a folder. I'll create a character but not have a use for them yet. But it's a little different when you have a character written and you need to come up with a design for them because you just don't know what they look like. Now, because I had established the Ori, I did have a base to start with when creating the captain here. But again, the captain is its own unique character, and he had to look different, and he had to be a different character. So I had the basic structure of him down, but now I had to take him and create the villain that he's going to turn out to be and finalize that design idea. So like I said, I'm not very good at just starting to scribble on a sketchbook and coming up with all these design ideas. How my characters end up looking is a combination of what I need them to be, based on how they're written, and what I think looks interesting and cool. Now, I did end up, before doing this video and doing the final drawing that we're doing behind me, before I put it in the computer and started drawing it, I actually took my sketchbook out and I took the initial design sketches I did, and I starting with that point, started just doing some new sketches to try to look at what from the initial sketches I wanted to keep and what I wanted to get rid of. So I did sketch about 5 or 6 pages of this character in hopes that something would come to me with how he should look ultimately. And after I did about 5 or 6 pages of sketches, I didn't really like most of them. Nothing really stuck to me as interesting. And there was a couple things that bothered me. One was that his body type looked too humanoid, and I wanted to kind of stick towards the more alien look that I established with the Arco character and with the Ori soldiers, because those are uniquely alien. They're much thinner than a normal human, but I also needed the captain to be a little more bulky, so naturally he would fill in and become more human shaped. So I wanted to try to take the traits from the initial Ori design and apply them to the captain here. I wanted him to look distinctly alien and distinctly Ori, what I established the Ori to be. But usually what I'll do when I create a new character is I'll start by creating a list of traits that I need him to have before I even start sketching. So once I have that list of traits, then I can start scribbling and coming up with a concept for the character. So I basically took the list and then I started sketching. And the nice thing about once you start sketching and you have your ideas, that starts snowballing into a bunch of new ideas, and it starts morphing the character closer to what you need him to finally be. So the result you see on the drawing behind me is lots of trial and error with the character, like starting with the initial sketch and scribbles and the ideas that define what the character needs to be, and then ultimately going to this final drawing that you see behind me. So what you see in this drawing here is a culmination of a lot of the initial ideas that are slowly coming together to make the final design decisions to come up with the final character design. Now, by doing this finalish drawing, I can see what decisions I still need to make absolutely certain the character is exactly what I want him to be. Now, also because there will be a final confrontation with the Spectre, I needed to design a weapon. I always envisioned the captain carrying a staff with kind of like a bayonet-style axe on it, but I also wanted him to carry a ranged weapon. So the staff actually doubles as a firing weapon. If he points the tip towards whatever target he is, he can fire a laser from the top of the axe, and he also has a melee weapon, which is the staff with the axe head on it. So it's a simple weapon, a simple idea, and it really establishes the character. Now, I also established that all of the Ori soldiers carry a staff as well, but it's more of an electrified rod that is more for herding the labor back into the mines. Now, it's important to talk about the Ori as well as the Optlings. My main character, Arco, in this storyline, who's with the good guys, who's hanging with the Spectre, trying to get to the final destination, is an Optling. The Optlings and the Ori are genetically related, even though they're natural enemies. And the Optlings' job is to keep the Ori in check. The Optlings are stronger than the Ori and can overwhelm them and keep tabs on them. Their job is to keep track of the Ori because the Ori are known to go and pillage worlds. I brought that up earlier in the video. So Captain Gorgo's design is almost complete, but there are a few things that I'm going to want to revisit before I fully finalize the character. So let's talk about a few of those things. One thing is the head. Although I like the way the head looks, it doesn't look menacing enough. If he's the top villain of this story and the big bad of my storyline, I think I need to revisit his head. He needs more texture. He needs more sharp edges. He needs to look more menacing, because right now he looks cartoon menacing, but I need him to actually be the evil character of this story. So I want to go and kind of play around with that and see how I can make it more hardcore. His body still looks way too humanoid and not enough Ori to me. So I want to go and maybe tweak some of his body shapes, features, and really drill into the alien part of his design. And then the last thing I want to revisit is his uniform. I want to establish what his uniform needs to do based on what I wrote in the story, and then maybe tweak it a little bit to make it a little more functional for what he needs to be. And I also want his pants and his boots to look a little different than your standard Ori, because he's not a foot soldier. He is the leader. So he needs to look a lot different than they do. But you need to be able to see some of the similar features that tie him back to the group, the rogue band of Ori that are out here. So although the captain's design looks final, I still will be going back and doing a few tweaks. I may do a follow-up with the thought process behind what I do tweak and how I did it, and then we'll kind of compare this final captain drawing to the final design when I finally tweak them and establish that this is the final character design for the captain. So that is it for this video. You can see this drawing of the captain posted on my Instagram at Space Misadventures, so go ahead and check it out there. That is it for this video. If you have any thoughts, post them in the comment section below. Go ahead and like the video, subscribe to my channel. Hope you have a good Christmas, and we will see you next time. Thanks for watching.